Welcome, everybody, to I Heard You When You Said, the only podcast that brings you multiple camera angles on different weeks. And by multiple, I mean one. And by one, I mean a different one.
You're right.
And now we can start since we've got the silent chuckle from Stacy.
Silent chuckle. We are here for
Everybody's
it.
ready to rock and roll now.
We are so here for this.
What's going on today?
Today is a good day. I'm wearing real clothes today, not workout clothes today. Came as a professional today. Boss babe status, which just happens to be when we record podcasts that I'm leveling this whole game up. I'm
going to go back and find the other podcast, and I'm going to see how many times I need like a searchable way to do the transcripts. I'm probably sure I can probably search the transcripts somehow and see how many times you say I'm leveling up or level up or something to that degree, like something in that statement. Because I feel like every time we get on the podcast, you are leveling up, and so I'm starting to wonder at what point do I start to level up? I'm worried about I'm falling behind here at this point.
I sometimes wonder too.
You sometimes wonder. Well, okay, well, I'm glad that we're having this conversation now.
No,
8 months in or whatever it's been.
Point being, before we get into what we're talking about today, is I'm in this ferocious pursuit. Ferocious.
That's a hell of an adjective. I like that. Go ahead.
Of getting out of my own way.
Okay.
I mean, it could align with how badass I feel because of Squattober. I'm not confirming nor denying that truth. Could be a lot of things. But you know me that I don't like anything having control over me. Even me. And so as I'm doing all of this personal work, I'm just seeing weak spots that I'm like, no, you're in your way. Nope, still in your way. And we've gotten resources and coaching and things that we're doing that are a catalyst to me asking myself hard questions.
Right.
So if there's a week that I do not show up in the seat, looking fierce, being ferocious, and saying that I level up, you should be slightly concerned.
Okay. Well, I'll take that as a good thing that the pattern holds consistent.
What we do is so important, not just to me, but who we do it for, that I want to be my best at it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's what we're constantly doing. Like we just, this week, really, I mean, well, this is Wednesday when we're recording this, but over the course of the past 7 days, I would say, we've had really big shifts in the way that we approach the cadence of our week to make sure that we're not only more prepared, because we've always been really good at coaching, and we had this discussion earlier, was being good at coaching and being good at talking about how you coach, or being good at attracting people to coach. Two totally different skills, right? And something that we're really still working on, right? I mean, by our measure, we still suck at that. Like we do a good enough job for people to be interested, to be curious, but we don't do we're not to the level that people can look, click, read, whatever it is, watch, listen, and be like, yes, I get exactly, with whatever, 90% certainty, I can pretty much tell you what they do and how they do it. Now, of course, we recorded the last episode specifically for that purpose, because that was really step one-ish. Well, that was probably step 101 of us trying to figure out how to say what we do and be as less ambiguous as we possibly can be as clear as we possibly can be. And so, yeah, we're definitely getting better at that. And that's evident by the new camera angle.
I was literally going to say the new camera angle. And here's really going to be my ask for you guys who are listening. If you're listening to this episode in October of 2024, Squattober, Bootylicious, then you are already attached to us in some way. Like you're a super fan, you love us, you love our friendship, you love what we do business-wise, you've watched our families grow side by side. That you guys are really the catalyst that gets us in front of more people. It's the shareability of what we do. And there is some pivots. We've definitely been intentional about being more business forward as we move forward, because this is what we love. Like, if you were with us to this point, you've gotten to watch me move to Texas and you've gotten to watch our friendship grow. And now we have intentionally gone like, let's talk about what we're really good at, because that is the thing that changes people's lives. Like, it is fun to watch us. Don't get me wrong. I think we're entertaining and I love that we get to hang and spend time together as families. But really, what we do is the thing that changes the conversation in the industry. It changes people's lives and it changes their legacy. So, for those of you, here's my ask. I want you to share it, like with one person, two people, any episode you like that really spoke to you, because you're so good at reaching back out to me and sending me a DM going, oh, I love this. Especially after the last episode, there were a couple people that went, damn, Stacey, you're so direct and I love it, about who we don't want to work with. They're like, yeah, Stacey said that out loud. That I love when you tell us, but I want you to tell somebody else too, because then your circle of influence as a human increases.
Absolutely. And here's the thing. Here's our ask on every episode, and we probably haven't made it as explicit as it should be, is that if you don't get any value, if you don't get some type of value from the episode, do not share the episode. But if you did, you do need to share the episode with someone. You don't have to, like, not the same person, like all 24 episodes. You're like, oh my gosh, this is the greatest episode ever. I know I've said that for the past 20, right? It's not like that. It's like, you know what? This actually reminds me of a conversation I had with so-and-so. I think they would love this episode. And really, to be honest with you, if it was me wanting you to send something that you thought was that spoke to you to me, I would actually prefer that you even tell me at what part in the episode. Like, hey, around minute whatever, around minute 20 in the episode, I really think that you would enjoy their conversation on this. So at least they have the context and they're not just trying to sift through an hour of us having a conversation, because that's a big commitment to ask of somebody who doesn't know who we are, who've never heard of us, and their only connection is you sending them this podcast. Right. And so, and of course, they can find us on Instagram. They can do the podcast. They can go watch the podcast on YouTube, all the stuff that we have available to look at what we do and how we do it. But the truth is that without a relationship, people aren't going to invest the time to listen to the entire episode. So if you do share it, share the point that was poignant to you, and then, let it go from there. Right. And if they want to invest in it, then they do. If not, cool. It usually takes a lot of different touch points to do that anyway, right? People need to see something several times to be invested in it. So today, go ahead.
Even between you and I, when you send me a podcast to listen to, you tell me why you want me to listen to it. You're like, hey, this is great language, or hey, this is great for us to use here. Like, you prime me before I listen to it. And I'm usually going to listen to anything you send me anyway, but it's super helpful. So I know the intent of, hey, what did he want me to get from this when I listen to it? That's a really good point for people in communication.
Yeah. And you don't have to listen to us on 1x speed either. You can listen to us on 1 1/4 or 1.5, because I listen to almost everything on at least 1 1/4, sometimes 2, depending on how fast the person's talking. But yeah, you definitely don't have to listen to this on regular speed. So you can make it less than an hour for sure. So today we had a conversation. Maybe it was something that we listened to. I don't really remember. Oh, I know. I remember what it was now.
I'm not sure.
I got sent a post from my mom. I don't remember the exact guy's name, but the post was talking about why rest is so important, and rest in the sense of, it was talking about it really more from a biblical perspective, but rest in the sense that not like laying down on the couch rest, but like true whole rest. I don't know how to say that the best way possible. Rest that feels
restorative.
Yes, re-energizing, right? Rest that you feel like, man, imagine like this. Imagine rest that you like had a really good like Sunday afternoon nap and you woke up and you were just like ready to smash some tacos.
Smash some tacos. Yeah. That's the new Sunday goal.
You ever taken you ever napped hard and then you woke up and you're like, this is a really good time for insert food here. Like insert whatever your food is. I just said tacos because that was the first thing that came to mind.
I haven't, but now this is a new goal. So now, post Sunday afternoon when I wake up, it's the text that you're going to get. It'll be like, dang, I never woke up and wanted tacos before after sleeping on a Sunday afternoon. Now I do.
Doubt it, but we'll move on. The one of the things that was part of the post was rest ethic. So everybody knows what work ethic is because everybody talks about that. In our culture, we're very work ethic focused. We're very, how much do you produce? How hard do you work? Can you be the hardest worker in the room? All that good stuff. And so we were very aware of having good work ethic. Usually that's a big compliment to a lot of people. I know it's a big compliment to me. So people are like, hey, I really think that you have great work ethic. You're a hard worker, all that kind of stuff. But there's really no conversation around rest ethic. I've never even heard that phrase before prior to that post. And so, of course, I took it, flipped it around in my mind, and tried to make the sense of that I could. And I made a post out of it on my Instagram, but then I thought it was a really good thing for us to dive into because this is a huge part of what we introduce to people. We just didn't have this language for it, but this is a huge part of how we get people to move from step one to really to step two is, I mean, obviously there's more, to step 100, but just to get somebody from where they're initially at, we really have to teach them that the world doesn't end when they drop whatever they're doing to focus on themselves.
I will even add, this is the biggest piece of friction we have with clients. That we, typically people who are attracted to us,
Yeah,
are previous versions of us. So they work really hard. So when we ask them to down regulate and we ask them to rest, which is, we will get into it, just a dirty 4-letter word. I think it's 4. Yeah, it's 4 letters. A dirty 4-letter word. If you guys can't see, Justin is now banging his head on the microphone. That it's a dirty word, that we run up against a lot of internal belief systems and friction on this one thing of how can I outwork rest? How can I outrest rest? What is the secret cheat code to not resting?
yeah.
I will say before we get into this, I was probably the biggest culprit previously in our coaching relationship.
Yeah, I mean the whole idea of rest for most people, I would say, is counterintuitive.
Mm.
It feels real what we call itchy. It's like, you want me to stop working hard? Question mark. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. I hired you to get me to work harder, and what you think you hired us for versus what you actually get out of it is two, usually a chasm of difference. But that's not for this episode. So what we want to first start off with is, what is rest ethic? Because it was a newer term to us, and so we, based off our experience of teaching rest ethic, just not knowing that that's what it was called, this is what we have defined rest ethic as: is a set of patterns that set you up to repair and or recover so that you work at max capacity. Okay, so a set of patterns that set you up to rest and recover so that you go and work at max capacity. And the point of that being, we actually work from rest, not rest from work. And I think a lot of us get that backwards. We're like, man, I got to go wear myself out to actually get to the point where I can sleep really well, right? That's resting from work. But that's a very short-term thing that doesn't, I mean, that pattern is not going to keep you at a high level very long if you don't understand how to work from rest instead of the other way around. And if you don't understand how to rest well, like truly turn off whenever it's time to do that, so that you can actually work at max capacity. Because if you're trying to get more productivity out, which is generally the overarching cultural goal, how can we do more in less time with less, whatever, is okay, well, we're going to have to increase the capacity of the amount of stuff that we can do in this window. Well, if we rest well, you can actually do that. It's just the rest part that those people.
And this is a countercultural conversation right now. So I don't expect you guys who are listening to, at the first time you hear this episode, be 100% bought in. So I'm going to ask you to listen to it twice. You can fast forward on the beginning part. But you think about from corporate America, you have 2 weeks of vacation a year. So you work 50 weeks to have 2 weeks off. But my experience of a vacation, if you vacation hard, you actually need a vacation from your vacation. The vacations, people don't know how to literally downregulate. Well, they go on vacation, they go do all of these things just in a different environment, kind of to escape from life, but not actually to restore from life. And so there's always this thing at the end of vacation, like, oh, I don't want to go home. And this will go into other things of building a life that you don't want to escape from. So hearing what we talk about of even not only what is a rest ethic, but why should I rest, is something that I'm willing to bet people haven't talked about or even heard about before.
Yeah, this is actually a little bit more tongue in cheek, but there's a difference between a trip and a vacation, and the difference is kids.
It's not tongue in cheek.
And a lot of parents will get that one right. If you have kids, you don't go on vacations; you go on
No.
trips because there's no vacation brings about like pictures of you laying on the beach with a drink in your hand and the breeze blowing through your hair and not a care in the world. No, that might be a vacation in your head, but you're not on a vacation with kids. You're on a trip, which is essentially working in a different capacity with a little bit more freedom to like the schedule of things, but kids still have to operate on some type of schedule, or they get a little nuts. So people are used to taking trips. They're not used to taking vacations.
Sure.
And when they plan these things, I'm not so sure that I think, like you said, people are escaping from the monotony and they're just so wanting to go and do whatever they don't normally get to do, that they don't even consider the fact that they they go and they work even harder at having an experience, which is not a bad thing. I mean, to go and experience things, but they don't ever get that true downtime, which is why you feel like you need a vacation from your vacation. So, something to think about. So the biggest thing that typically gets people's attention is, you know what? Why does this even matter? So you told us what rest ethic is. Why should you rest? Okay. So like we said, you're going to have more capacity at work and you're going to have more capacity to play, which means if you understand how to rest, you're actually going to have better vacations. You're actually going to have better weekend downtime, better whatever it is that is your hobby outside of work. You're going to have better relationships, right? You're actually going to get something out of spending time, or get more out of, I would say, spending time with your significant other, or spending time with friends that have the same interest as you, or hanging out with your kids if they're, on the older side of things. You're not necessarily playing anymore. You're like sharing life experiences with them. So that's going to be enhanced with rest. It's going to help you bring you into the present moment, which I know you're way better at defining this. So I want you to speak on that.
Well, this will even go into when we talk about vacations, of staying so busy so you don't have to rest. The reason that rest is itchy is because quiet can be really loud. So when we're asking people to start to incorporate a rest ethic, we're also asking them to learn how to quiet the noise around them and be present in this moment. You can't rest in the past and you can't rest in the future. So rest forces you to be here in this moment, not on your phone, not looking at everything around you. It's a conversation, two people, or even by yourself, like with a book, being focused on one thing that allows you to breathe. And so a lot of people live in the past because their present reality is so challenging, or they live in a future because the present reality is so challenging that they cannot rest because there's no peace in the moment. So why does it matter? And I think the last point is the one that drives it home in the present moment, is that every single one of your health metrics improve when you rest restoratively. And that can't happen in the past. You can't change what we did yesterday. And we don't really have control of what we're going to do tomorrow. But in this moment, we can cultivate this moment to, even if the world is spinning around us, even if there's chaos, we can choose a moment where, okay, I've got this right now, and it sets up the next moment for success. But it's a harder thing to choose in a moment, especially when work is so satisfying.
Yeah, I think it's all about where you get your, like, where you get value from, where you think your value comes from, and we'll talk about that here in just a second. But the biggest thing I find with all health metrics improving as a big reason why you should rest, we believe that's one of the main reasons you should rest. Because everybody wants something out of their health. They want a longer life. They want to be able to move better. They want to be able to look a different way. They want to be able to overcome some type of, shitty genetic hand they were dealt, right? Like whatever it is, they want something out of their health, but it's the thing we pay attention to the least as a society, in my experience. And so, out of all those reasons we just gave, I would actually think health is the least sexy reason. Like it's actually the one that people care about the least. Because unless you're a doctor in a white lab coat and you're going in the doctor and then he's like, hey, your heart is about to explode, and so you should definitely do something before you die. Like, unless it's that serious, a lot of people don't really bat an eye because they don't know what it means. Like, they don't understand what having good health means, or like how to improve health, or they don't feel like they have any agency over it. And so that's part of what we do as coaches, is try to give people that agency back in their health journey. But again, knowing what rest ethic is, understanding some of the main reasons why you should do it, still not going to get you all the way there, right? And so what we want to provide to you guys, as really, this is the main, like, this is the shareable piece. Okay, there's some clips we've had so far, right? There's some sound bites, but this is the piece that's actually going to put boots on the ground, as I like to say. So how we help people structure this rest ethic, how we help them structure rest into their life. The first thing you have to understand is that rest is actually a belief system. And that's a very loaded word. That's a very ambiguous, loaded phrase. And you could go Google that and you're going to get, a crap ton of stuff about it. But how we want to simplify it is, you have to learn to value rest in the same way, or to the same degree, that you value work. So nobody's going to give you a compliment on how rested you are. Like, oh my gosh, Stacy, you napped so hard yesterday. You look so well rested. Like, you're really not going to get that compliment from the world at large, right?
Correct.
And so because of that, what are you going to plant your flag on? You're going to plant your flag on the things that you get complimented on, or that you do really well, or that you feel like you do really well, right? Is typically working, right? Or something that feels like work, even if it's just spinning your wheels. So you have to ask yourself, what are my beliefs around rest? That's the first step of building this rest ethic, is understanding what is your bias when it comes to rest versus work. We're entrepreneurs, so obviously our bias is to work. Our bias is to try to take control, is to try to mute what the world is saying and create our own world. And that creating that takes a lot of time and effort and work. But we've realized that it's all going to be for nothing if you're doing it to some degree that's going to exclude the benefit of your family, the benefit of your health, the benefit of your sanity, because it's not easy to own your own business. So what are your beliefs around rest? Do you think rest is lazy, right? Or do you think you're only valuable when you're working? Do you think that you have a reflex to work to avoid something, right? So I think there's some questions to ask yourself there.
Oh, yeah, because if we stay busy, we don't have to talk about nothing.
That's right.
I don't have to feel nothing. I don't have to talk about anything. And I'm praised, especially in the social media world, for all the things I get done. And I can say, even from a personal thing, this is something we're rewriting in my own story, because, I was the superhero mom of 6 kids, changing the world advocate in the front. And that was the thing that was I was complimented and praised for the most. I was also meeting a huge need. So to rest at some level was also dangerous at the time that I was living in it. But now it's creating a different narrative, really a different belief system that I value it more than the work. The challenge is that rest doesn't give us dopamine like work does. And so it's changing the value system of, is this worth it? Do I really, really rest from work instead of work from rest? And so it's creating small things, small patterns to go, oh, that's relevant. And we were just talking about it this morning that yesterday I had a full list of things that I wanted to get done for our business. But I chose intentionally to rest with my husband and play with my kids so that I could be present with them and do what we do better today. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense. That doesn't make a lot of sense on paper. That doesn't bring dollar signs in a moment, but does it create a better quality of life and allow me to be more creative because I curated that time so I can actually be more productive and double down today? 100%. But I also know that that is not people's experience, and it is counterintuitive to most likely everything you've been taught your entire life. But one of the things before we get into what this structured rest looks like is I don't think we've really communicated what we mean that what rest is versus work. Because this isn't just sitting on your couch and putting your feet up and ignoring like your responsibilities or literally just eating pizza at the table. Like, will you talk more about what we view rest is to give it more context?
So to me, the restorative type of rest, the rest that we're trying to get everyone who's listening or watching to hone in on, is the type of rest that helps you breathe better. Really,
That's a good example.
that's the only way that I can think to put it in this current moment. And I don't necessarily, I mean, obviously it includes breath work, but I don't necessarily mean like you have to go and take deep breaths to be able to do this. That's a way to do it. But I think a lot of us, if we really paid attention, you can probably feel in a pretty quick exercise, like in a 10-second review of how you're breathing, how short your breaths are, how tight you feel, how just like your general like body awareness. If you take just a little time to feel that as you're listening to this, or maybe after you turn this off, or maybe you're going to pause it and do it right now, that you can really tell, like, am I carrying something around that I'm not aware of? Because there's so much stimulus in our world now, phones, computers, lights, sounds, all that kind of stuff, that we really don't have unless we create it, which we'll get to. You're not given the space to be self-aware. And by self-aware, I'm not even talking about like mentally self-aware. I'm talking about literally like, how am I breathing? How am I moving? Do I make a little every time I get up out of the chair, right? Like a little bit of a groan, or like I've talked about with you before. It's like, can you hear yourself breathe? Like, can you hear how loud you're breathing? And I know we said that. I know this, like, it sounds like a joke in that context, but it's like, can you hear the labor in some of your breaths, right? And we're not aware unless you are like, but you can hear it in other people, right? You can see it how other people breathe through a Zoom call, right? You can, because you're very trained in that. You've seen it. You've looked at the patterns a lot. So when we go back to what rest are we talking about, what we're really talking about is the type of rest that helps you be okay with whatever happens.
Whatever happens.
That's how I think of it.
It's curated. I don't want to say in the dark, because you don't need to rest in the dark, but it's almost curated in private so it can stand in public in whatever situation is, which comes down to nervous system regulation. It's trained at all the times you don't need it. So it shows up when you do.
I'll say this. So you're talking about you going with your family yesterday instead of doing whatever you could have done on the business, right? That's going to come with practice and understanding what do you have the capacity to do in a single day's worth of work and what you don't. And are you okay with pivots? right? Those are a couple of things that are going to be a little bit more individual to the person. But I will say this, and I think this will touch a lot of, like, this will mean something to a lot of people. A lot of us need to be able to solve problems and think creatively. And by creative, I don't mean like drawing a picture or painting or creating music, although that's what some people do. What I'm saying is to think creative and solve problems, because life does not give you a math problem that you had on a test. Life gives you complex and divergent situations, meaning how you handled it last time with those people may not be the same way you handle it this time with these people, because you're different, they're different, the situation different, the world's different, right? And you have more things at your disposal maybe. So the ability to problem solve and think creatively can only come from a place of a rested, clear mind. And a clear mind doesn't mean you're not thinking about anything. It's the ability to focus. That's really what it is. So you doing what you did yesterday is actually filling up your cup for you to be able to use that cup to think and create and problem solve today for our business and the people that we help. So in what I'm trying to get to is, you taking time to not work yesterday is actually you pulling back the slingshot for you to actually work better for the people that we're going to talk to today, right? For all our clients and stuff that we're going to help solve problems for today, instead of hammering down in one day and then having to try to pick yourself up the next day and being worse for the people that we actually are doing this for.
100%. And it was something that we've curated over time where I could double down. And we've watched me double down. Hi, 2023. Double down, then some. And we're still repairing in my body the things that 2023 cost, that I can be a workhorse. Okay. But I also had to learn how to rest. And so when we get into what rest doesn't look like, I don't want anybody to miss. We're not only teaching this from a place of experience, we teach this from a place of practice. This is our literal life. So why do we share personal stories of what I chose not to do yesterday? So that you know we are living this out loud and getting better at it at the moment. It is also the culture we created in our business of what we wanted for our families. That at the end of the day, if we have a super successful business and we help thousands of people who aren't our families, but we don't have our families, what's the point?
Right. Yeah.
That the world says we're amazing? That's not something that I want.
Well, I mean, we're sitting here telling you that what the world says is not the truth all the time, right? I mean, like, obviously we all want those things. We all want more money. We all want more time and freedom and ability to do whatever. But like, if you don't have the people that you love to do it with, then what the hell does it matter? Because I mean, I listen to a lot of a podcast called Founders, great podcast. And so one of the main things that I've learned from listening to the Founders podcast is that people that have a bias for action all the time and that all they do is work typically end up losing their families. A lot of them lose their marriage. A lot of them don't have good relationships with their kids. There's a few stories of people who bucked that trend and still built like really successful companies. But that's not the norm.
Mm-mm.
And so when we get into talking about what does shitty rest ethic look like,
what not to do.
Yeah, it doesn't. What I want to make clear is that we're not saying that you shouldn't work hard. What we're trying to say is that you should purposefully put time in your life, in your daily, weekly cadence, to curate some type of rest for yourself. And typically that starts at the beginning of the day. And we'll get to a little bit of that. But if you're asking yourself, what does this look like for me? Like, how do I know if I have shitty rest ethic, right? First of all, if you haven't related to any of this stuff that we're talking about, we're probably talking to you, right? We're talking to ourselves in a lot of ways. But what bad rest ethic look like is you're always busy, but you're rarely productive, right?
Oh.
You're actually busy as an escape typically, or you're busy because you don't have any clarity or focus on something. So you just do something that makes you feel like you're working. And then you go, man, I did a lot today. And then you look at the fruit of your work and you're like, but it doesn't look like I did a lot today.
Mm-mm.
So always busy, not productive. There's a lot of, you got a lot of monkey mind, and the monkey mind for me, comes with like an inability to focus on one thing for an extended amount of time. And an extended amount of time could be anything for people. I mean, if you normally can do 5 minutes, like an extended amount of time, maybe 10 minutes for you, like, you know what I mean? Whatever that means to you personally, but that's how it shows up for me. It could be low memory, right? Inability to just remember, like, you came in the house, you set your keys down, and then you turn around, you don't remember where you set your keys at, right?
I feel like that was very targeted.
It wasn't targeted. I would have said sunglasses if it was targeted, or wallet. But
Yes.
and I'm not saying a once off. I'm saying like you constantly catch yourself being like, what did I even come here for? Like, what was right? That's a sign that your brain is it's not really here, right?
It's not present.
Somewhere else, yeah.
And so even like for me, my monkey mind looks different. It is moving from task to task because I have so many tabs open that I don't finish the task. I'll think of, oh my gosh, I need to go do that. And then I'll go do that. And I'll go do that. And so it's not that I can't focus on something for a long time. It's that I have all these other tabs like vying for my attention is how it shows up for me. And I have to choose which one's on fire. Well, the truth is none of them currently are on fire. It's just which one. I don't live a life where things are on fire anymore unless it's one of our pretty candles that smell amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it shows up differently. So when people hear us say monkey mind, there's not one way that looks, but hearing it, you know what it is for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're going to know. Again, it's kind of one of those unspoken but commonly felt sentiments. It could also be racing thoughts, so like inability to go to sleep or really just sit still at all, right? It's this constant need to be up and doing something, and you think that you're doing good because you're like, well, my house is really clean because I clean all the time.
I was gonna say cleaning is a big one.
Well, cleaning laundry, dishes, it's like, well, nobody can ever say that I'm not, whatever. But are you doing it because like a dirty house just drives me crazy? Okay, understood. But does it literally need to be nothing can be sitting on the counter? Like absolutely nothing? I think that's a little bit unrealistic. The truth probably is closer to stillness feels uncomfortable for you. You don't like, again, you may find your value is from doing things because that's how you were raised or whatever. And so if that's how you feel, plus you're avoiding something, that's a double doozy.
Double down.
And so all of a sudden, this busy but not productive starts to pop out again, right? And you just have to be constantly in motion, and you're uncomfortable sitting and doing nothing. And that does not mean sitting and watching TV and scrolling your phone. That's still doing something.
That's doing something. That's not rest. Present. Yeah,
that's not rest. That's still distraction. We've just gotten better at distracting without movement, which is a whole nother point that is making our health worse. But
switch that gear, drop a bomb and let it go.
It's like, and I'll just leave that there. So the bigger point here being, we've given you all these ways that having bad rest ethic looks, or how you can look at the good things that are involved in rest ethic. But what we're going to get to now is, where do you even start? Because a lot of this ethereal stuff is what I'll call it.
Ooh,
yeah.
Up in the ether?
Yes, this ambiguous rest ethic. Like it sounds like something that came out of a yoga video, right? It can be almost maddening to hear about it and want it and just be like, but now what? Like, what am I supposed to do? Like lay down on the floor and just like not do anything? I mean, you could.
Well,
right?
That's not restful.
Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you that from a yoga perspective, is that by the time we get to an end of a class, and I usually, when I taught publicly, would tire people out to the extent that they couldn't fight rest, that I would wear them out physically and somewhat emotionally, that by the time that they got to that final resting pose at the end, that they couldn't fight it anymore. Because it is a fight. For those of you who are wired for survival, which note, all of us, we just have different choices of what we will engage in or not, that there are still people that tired that I watch can't close their eyes. They want to rest so bad, which is why I think this next part is so important, because I believe people want it, but they're scared of it. What happens on the other side? And then how do I do it consistently? Because when you start to unwork that bias of belief and value and stillness, you open a can of worms. It's like literally Pandora's box that typically most people avoid because you have to look at what's real. But I believe that most people truthfully want to rest so bad, they're just scared of it.
Yeah.
So if we're going to give them a nugget of where to start, since we want to be helpful, where do we even start with creating a small rest bias?
So our normal starting place is 5 minutes of something, right?
Of something.
Like everybody's got 5 minutes to devote to something, and you're going to be real bad at it, right? It's going to be real uncomfortable, and because you're stepping outside of your, it sounds like something that anybody can do, and anybody has the ability to do it, but not everybody has the capacity to do it because you're not used to it. Okay? You're stepping outside your comfort zone. It's going to be the equivalent of the first time you ever did a really hard workout, and you were very unsure and you didn't know what to do, but you did it anyway, and then you kind of got that little like hit from it. Now it's not gonna be the same hit, but it's gonna be the same first time equivalent, right? That 5 minutes is gonna feel like a wasted 5 minutes, honestly. Like in our head, it's gonna be like, that was stupid. Okay, we're asking you that even if it feels stupid, that you continue to do the stupid thing.
Welcome to Fortify Health Coaching,
Yes.
where we ask you, if it feels stupid, do the stupid thing.
Keep doing it. No, so you need to plan this. Number one, I rarely say need, but that this is absolutely a need because it's never going to pop up. It's never going to make its way into your day. So, maybe it's you wake up, drink your water, coffee, whatever it is, and you literally say, I'm going to take this 5 minutes to do X. And X is any restorative practice, any type of restoration. And you can give it whatever words you want, any non-busy activity, any time for myself, any self-preservation. I mean, I don't know what you want to call it.
I like your NBA, non-busy activity.
Non-busy activity.
Because if we call it something different, it makes it more palatable for people, especially if rest is a 4-letter word. You can go with an NBA.
Well, think about the way that we now hear yoga nidra. It's not called yoga nidra. It's called non-deep sleep rest.
Because yoga nidra means something different.
Depending on what your experience is, it could be, right?
Yeah.
And so non-deep sleep rest, if that's what you want to call it, I mean, we encourage you to Google that, and you can find plenty on yoga nidra / non-deep sleep rest. Is essentially just a tiny little amount of time where you're focusing on one thing, one thought, one mantra, one saying, one whatever you want to call it. That's actually giving something back to you, not something that's just like, I'm going to focus on the fact that I have to go run 5 miles this morning. That's going to be so hard. It's not that, right?
No.
It's a restorative activity that becomes a practice. And so that could be 5 minutes of taking really deep breaths and really slow exhales, right? And 5 minutes for that is probably going to be a pretty long time. That could be 1 minute at that point. 5 minutes is what I'm saying is 5 minutes of a general scheduled time. It could be 5 minutes of just going to stand outside with your feet in the grass to your closest dirt grass that you can find, right? We have clients do that all the time. It could be 5 minutes of just dumping whatever is in your mind out on a piece of paper. It could be reading a book. It could be listening to someone with a really soothing voice talk about nothing in particular.
Talk about rest.
Hi, welcome to the Fortify Health Coaching podcast, or the I Heard You When You Said podcast, sponsored by Fortify Health Coaching. No. What else could it look like? How do you describe it, I guess?
Well, I think that people look at rest as stillness. And I would love to introduce the possibility that rest can be in motion. For me personally, when I go for a walk outside, that's restful. to me, not with a weighted vest. That is not restful. So it comes down to the intent of what's the stimulus that I want. If I put on the weighted vest, that's a workout. That's a recovery activity that is not restful. When I go for a walk at night with my husband, that's restful. There's no weighted vest. That's hand in hand. That's just, the moon was stunning last night, by the way. That's restful. And so you can rest in motion, depending on the type of yoga. That can be restful. Restorative yoga is restful. Even Tai Chi, restful. If you wanted to go on a leisurely bike ride around your neighborhood, remember when people had little baskets and bells on their bikes and they would just like drive around? You don't remember that? Did you ever have a bell on your bike?
I mean, I had a bell on my bike, but I didn't have a basket on my bike. But I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That could be restful.
Very 60s of you.
I wasn't born then. That rest can be in motion. It also can be still, but depending on what your bias is, your bias for work, your bias for needing to move to get energy out of your body, stillness might be too much of an ask. So it might be, hey, listening to a guided meditation while walking. And that is rest. But that's a perspective I haven't heard taught outside of my world, that rest can be in motion. You don't have to sit there with your legs crossed and be like chanting.
Yeah. No, that's what we all think of when we think of like rest, meditation. It can also look like doing a puzzle. It can also look like calligraphy or anything that involves like moving your hands in a, and like pen to paper type stuff. So there's a lot of different things that could be restful to you as an activity that you actually could ease into, not necessarily just sitting there doing nothing. Now, here's some things to watch out for, okay? We love, especially if you're a type A person, which a lot of the people that we work with are, because that's who we attract, because that's kind of who we are. You got to watch for the, am I doing it right? That's a stress stimulus, right? The stress of getting it right is going to be very loud, because what we're used to is, this is the standard, this is the thing you do, this is how long you do it, this is how much you do it, right? Like a training plan. There is no getting this right. Doing it is getting it right. Doing it is doing it is doing it, and you're going to suck at it for a while until you don't. And when you don't, you're going to look back and be like, I've been going on a walk with a guided meditation for 10 days now. And before I couldn't even string together 3 days of that, right? And so just be careful of that puddle, so to speak, of thinking that you have to get it right off the bat or get it right at any point in time, even if it looks different than it normally does. Let's say that you went from a 5-minute walk to a 30-minute walk over time. Well, there's going to be some days where a 5-minute walk is probably all you have the capacity or the time for in that season. So don't feel bad about lowering the time you get to devote to rest. That's the whole point, is that you're making it a practice so that you can come back to it time and time again, and it can give you more energy, it can give you more capacity to go and do the things that are necessary in that season. And again, we're not looking to make it more. We're not looking, Stacy, to take a restorative walk and throw on a weighted vest because that's what's fun. No, you have a purpose in doing that. I'm just joking, but the point is, it's not like, well, if 5 minutes of a walk is great, 30 minutes of a walk is even better.
I'm gonna rest so good. Yeah. I'm gonna be the best rester there is. Watch me rest.
I'm gonna be a rested bitch by the end of this day.
Oh,
just watch me. But doing more is not the intention of rest. Could you get better at the activity that you choose to do for rest? Yes, you can. But doing more of it does not necessarily mean you're getting a better effect from it in this instance.
Well, I think about it like a savings account. It's deferred dividends, right? You are making a deposit for something you are not going to see until a future date.
Right.
In a training stimulus, when we go Squattober, we get to see the results really quickly. Like moving a load and doing that work is really invigorating. Like you get an instant response. Rest is not like that. It's trusting in the process that what I'm investing in restoratively right now has a payoff that I can't see yet, so I can increase my capacity. But it's that delayed gratification that makes it so much more challenging to engage in.
I agree. And this is going to be something that we're probably going to talk about on another podcast.
Oh, I'm confident. What is it? Tell me.
The ability for you to sit in the ambiguous spaces is the number one factor for your success in anything, because nothing is straightforward. Nothing, even the things that have step-by-step plans, that you're still going to run into issues here and there, right? Even if you've done it before, even if you've done it a million times. Again, the world changes, you change, people change, technology change, whatever. So your ability to sit with ambiguity and unclear outcomes and am I doing it rightness, and just that the itchiness that is that is paramount to your success. That's going to decide if you're successful or if you continue to do it or if you don't continue to do it. Your ability to sit with ambiguity. So send that to your friends. No. So let's give everybody something that's really going to satisfy them. If they've sat this long and listen this long, let's give them a little bit that they're just going to really love. So pay particularly close attention to this part.
I mean, really, this is the part where we tell you why you should not rest. This is the antithesis to everything we have said so far. Are you ready? Drum roll, please. I love that drum roll. That is amazing. You don't get paid to rest. I challenge that. I challenge that. I get paid to rest. Come for my job. Come for my job. I get paid to rest. You don't get paid to.
You don't get paid to. But if you did, it'd be a lot cooler if you did.
You'd probably make more.
But if you did, you'd probably make more money.
You'd probably make more money.
Yeah, that's true. But that's true. You don't get paid to rest. So, hey.
Stay around and watch a while. Watch how we prove this theory.
Yeah. Rest is not cool. You don't get paid to do it.
Ooh. You ready for the next one?
Yeah.
You want me to do it?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Somebody's going to suffer when you rest.
It's not going to be you.
Yeah. Somebody's going to not have something that they need when you decide to rest. Somebody's not going to have a meal cooked. Somebody's going to forget something at home that you would have normally reminded them to get. Somebody's going to, call you and you're going to miss that call because you're resting. And, somebody's going to suffer in a small way usually, because you decided to rest.
Agreed. It's why you shouldn't do it, because people cannot live without you.
Yeah. I mean, their world does not spin unless you're in it.
And I'd challenge that you've created it to be as such. Reasons why you shouldn't rest.
And that, my friends, is another podcast.
That is another podcast.
How about my life is harder after I rest?
That's true. Especially if the previous statement is true. Your life is harder after you rest, because now you're dealing with the fallout of everybody you've trained to depend on you having to figure things out for themselves.
Hey, if you're the one carrying the big stick in the house, when you stop carrying that stick, guess what? Things are going to be a little haywire for a minute.
For a hot minute.
For a hot minute.
And
you're going to have to figure out how to clean it up after you take that rest. And then you might go, maybe I should teach these other people how to clean up a little bit better. And here we are. What about the next one?
The next one I think is really relevant. You never got taught to. And now that you've listened to this, you no longer have that excuse, because we literally just taught you how. But how can you do something that you've never seen done successfully or even heard how to do? And so we are fully aware that you were probably never taught how to rest, because that goes back to the belief systems of why it would be unattractive in the first place. And so then the question you get to provide to yourself is, do I want to learn how to? And we've given you the tools to do that, but it still becomes your own agency.
And then probably the one that nobody wants to face up to
Oh,
is that when I just feel burnt out and I'm just constantly talking about how hard I work and, how much I'm pushing right now, then that's just, even if it sucks for me physically, it's a familiar feeling, right?
it's a familiar pain.
And the devil that you know is better than the angel that you don't. So the burnout being familiar to you is way more comforting, even though it's uncomfortable, but it's comforting to your mind to be like,
Mm-hmm.
well, hey, if I stay burnt out, nobody can accuse me of being lazy,
Right?
right? If I stay burnt out, I don't have to face the fact that XYZ is going on right now or went on however many years ago, right?
Correct.
Again, not doctors, not therapists, so please consult your people. But the pain and burnout being familiar, I mean, you probably shouldn't rest. If you like that feeling and you're good with being familiar with that, that's probably a good reason not to rest.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
A good reason not to.
So, um,
So now that we've just given them really the antithesis to everything we believe, and we say that tongue in cheek, but at some point, these were all of my reasons to not rest. So I can say it tongue in cheek, sarcastic about it, because this was the life that I for sure lived before I chose to do something different.
so this is what we want you to do. We're inviting you to our community of people that we are going to give them the tools to learn how to rest,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we have a community on Skool, Skool. We talked about it before. Truthfully, we sucked at building it. Now we're getting better at not sucking at building it, just like you're getting better at not sucking at resting. We want you to come and join the Fortify Health Coaching community on Skool. And we will leave a link to that in the show notes of this podcast. And we want to teach you, we want to guide you, support you in that process of you learning how to rest. We want you to come in there. By the way, this is not a free group, okay? Because we ask for investment. If we're gonna invest in you, we ask that you invest in us,
Mm-hmm.
and that way hey, I am receiving the value that I put forward, that I've traded my hard-earned money for in this part, and you're going to take it more seriously by investing. But we're going to give you the resources, we're going to give you the guidance, and we're going to give you the community-wide shared experiences of people who are at stage one, maybe like you might be, of learning how to rest, and also people who are a little bit farther down the timeline of resting, and they maybe just came through that season that you're currently in, or maybe they've been through, like in Stacey's experience, she's been through years of seasons of ups and downs and lived through a lot of not restful and restful periods, and now she's getting better at creating a restful experience with a new stimulus, right? Never built your own company before.
Mm-mm.
And so here we are going through it ourselves and figuring out how to bring rest into a space where work is really the thing that gets that direct return on investment, where work is a thing that we can go, I produce this today and that makes me money right now, or that gets me somewhere down the road tomorrow. And bringing in the ambiguity that rest is, and go, today I'm investing in this because tomorrow is when I'm actually going to do the building. Today I'm doing the rest. Tomorrow I'll do the building, and I'll continue with that cadence until I've built what I want, or I continue to build the same thing bigger, right? And so that's what we're inviting you to do. Join our community and let us help you.
Yeah, you'll get to watch us do it too. This is different, and we built it different on purpose. We know that there are a lot of communities out there, but they're not ours. And I have a lot of confidence in what we do and what we give to people, just because we've put in a lot of reps. We've helped a lot of people, and this is the best way for us to have some level of helping more to really change the conversation that we just had today. Because if it's the first time you're hearing it, then you're going to need to hear it a bunch more times for it to stick.
And just so you didn't forget, if you got something out of it, send it to somebody. Tell them what part you got something out of. Tell them what part you're kind of wrestling with if you're close enough to that person to be like, hey, by the way, I kind of suck at this, and I thought you might get something out of it too. Or hey, I might need your help in supporting me through getting better at not sucking at this.
This is my ask. Don't send it to the person who cleans the house perseveravely and go, you really need to listen to this. They won't get it, okay? They're going to be offended that you told them to rest. They're not ready. They're not self-aware yet. I know you want to send this. The person is in your mind's eye right now. Pick a different podcast, okay? Pick a different podcast.
Or maybe do that in person. They'd be like, you know what? I listened to this podcast and it really changed my perspective. And I'd love to tell you about it.
Love to clean the kitchen with you?
Yeah. I'd love to clean the kitchen with you while we listen to this podcast. There you go.
That's a good sell.